Wake that ass up.
In the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Yep, Charlamagne the God, Jess Hilarious. We are the Breakfast Club. Envy is not here at the moment, but we have a special guest in the building. He's been here before a couple of times. Jordan Belfort.
What's up?
Hello.
What's up? How's everybody?
How are you, sir?
You guys are looking good today. You know?
Hey,
Thank
man.
you.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Listen, recovering out of big surgery about 3 weeks ago, rotator cuff, right?
Okay.
And had to do grabs. I had to take muscle from my lats and my pecs. A big deal. But
wow.
I'm on the mend there, so I'm solid as a rock. I'm ready to roll. Starting
How
rehab.
did you do that?
How'd I do it?
Yeah.
A lot of golf, weightlifting, and I wrestled in college, and I just had 3 surgeries before this. It was just totally wasted.
So wear and tear.
Yeah, wear and tear.
Yeah.
You know, Jess has never met you before, but she did see The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes. And you're the real.
I'm the real wolf. I'm retired wolf. You know, I'm the more benevolent wolf. Yeah, it was a great movie, and the thing with that movie was interesting for me is that those events took place 30 years ago, but because the movie came out in 2013 and it's still on TV. People are like, well, it happened 3 weeks ago, right? Is your daughter still 3 years old? My daughter's 30.
Right.
I have a grandson, so it's pretty funny, you know?
I don't think I've ever asked you where you got the wolf from. Where did the wolf come from?
Believe it or not, the wolf came from a show. You ever watch Gilligan's Island?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I even did.
The character, Thurston Howell III, his nickname was the Wolf of Wall Street. So it was like a joke about that. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
So about the movie, how much of it was real events? Was any of it add-ons or
I would say, listen, 90% of it was true. And the stuff, and my life was probably even more insane because it was stuff that you just couldn't put on screen. It would be X-rated. You know, I was, right? But the stuff that wasn't true was a lot of characters. Well, they would collapse 3 people's actions into one character. Like the Danny character it was bad. Danny did it, right? You know, that was the Donnie Jonah Hill character, right? And they moved the timeline around, but by and large, it was really accurate. You know,
Wow.
You got a new book out called The Wolf of Investing. It came out fall of last year. My Insider's Playbook for Making a Fortune on Wall Street.
Yeah.
And you know, the first thing people will say is, "Why should we listen to him?
It's a good
Why should
question.
we take any tips from him?"
Yeah, good question. I think that on some level, who better to expose what's going on Wall Street, and someone that made the mistakes was part of it on the inside. And I think it's funny. People say, why don't you ever write about the stock market? And I never did before. So all my books before this have been about sales or my life story, right? But obviously I have massive knowledge about Wall Street. I ran one of the largest firms on Wall Street in the 90s in the IPO market. But I never thought of writing a book. But I think over the last, since I started going out in 2008 around the world and teaching sales and entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and I really helped millions and millions of people. And I think I've rebuilt my reputation to the point where I have a very large fan base who trust me, and I've helped so many people. Like when I walk around, people say, "You changed my life." As I walk around, people always say, "You changed my life." I went into this business course, entrepreneurship. And I felt that it was I felt comfortable enough. So, I'm going to talk about investing. And when I started writing the book, I mean, I wrote what I consider to be the purest book of investing. It's so unarguably the right way for someone to get wealthy in the stock market. It's the exact opposite of everything I did back. By the way, it's the opposite of what I did when I actually went to jail. I was, manipulating stocks. It's smaller stocks. The advice I'm giving in this book is really, honestly, it's for any person of any age. Obviously, the younger you start, the better. But the thesis is as follows. And it's nothing in here that's revolutionary. It's just I wrote it in a really funny, kind of laugh out loud, irreverent way so people would kind of turn the page and made it into a story. Because the truth is the best advice for investing is out there.
Yeah.
There's nothing you have to, it's like I didn't do some analysis eureka, I have this way. It's not like that, okay?
Really? Even with all this new stuff like Bitcoin and, things like that?
So listen, in the book, there's 2 main investments I talk about. One is the S&P 500, which is an index. And so instead of buying just a random stock and trying to trade in and out, which is a sucker's game, by the way, right? And what really bothers me, and I have this big thing about CNBC in there, and how they basically are like the worst thing that could ever happen to the average investor. Because if you watch the CNBC, you'll think you can trade in and out of stocks short term and make money. And the fact is that the scientific academic studies going back to 1900 that says it's virtually impossible to beat the S&P. It's just impossible. There's a few people that can do it, right? And they're not taking it. It's like Warren Buffett, a few others, very few. No one could beat the S&P by and large, right? But if you watch the show, you'll think that's the best way to trade. Go from oil into crypto, from crypto into tech stocks, from tech stock into commodity. And you're not going to make money that way, right? So that one investment is the S&P. And I wrote the book. I think when I wrote the book, the S&P was like 3,800. Now it's 5,000, right? I also said Bitcoin's a good investment, but small, like 5 to 10% of your portfolio, right? The largest should be, I think, the S&P. And at the time, it was 22,000. Now it's 73,000. But that doesn't, like, the fact that I was right is irrelevant because it just as easily could have been down in 1 year. In other words, you can't look at investing as a 1-year proposition. When I wrote that, I said, listen, Bitcoin right now is 20-something. I think it's going higher, but it could be going lower. But I think in 5 to 10 years from now, it's massively higher. And the S&P was 3,800, and it might go to 3,600. Maybe it's at 4,000. I didn't think we'd go to 5,000. It's at 5,000 plus now. So I look, I'm like a genius, but that's not true. It could have easily been down. So you can't invest and worry about the price the next week, the next month, or even the next year. I believe the best way, especially people in their 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, right? You have to take a long-term horizon and rely on what's called compounding. So with the S&P 500, the idea is that, you take the profits and you just let it, as it compounds and you get your dividends, you reinvest the dividends, you let the compound over time, even though it only returns 10% a year. So you say to yourself, like, well, 10% a year, how do I get rich on 10% a year, right? If I put in $30,000, it's $3,000. What does that do for me, right? But what you don't realize is that the next year you have 33,000. And if it compounds, then you have a bit more. That compounding, after it gets like 20 years, goes parabolic. So like literally, if you invested like $30,000 in the S&P, and let's just go back 30 years, let's say 30 years ago, 40 years ago, right? $30,000 and put $200 a week in. You'd have like $25 million now. It's like, and I just made that number up. So I could be off by 5 or 10 million. But you have a massive amount of millions of dollars, right? So I think the trap that people fall into when they invest is they say, I only have $5,000 or $10,000. I got to make a huge hit. I have to time the market. So they get trapped in trying to do a short-term trade, or they go on margin, they get blown out. And you could start with a small amount and end up with a huge amount if you have patience. That's what the book is about.
Yeah. So the key is patience.
Patience,
basically.
and also that, you're not going to beat the S&P 500. So the cornerstone of your portfolio should be this. And there's no fees attached to it. You put your money in, you let it ride. So it's like set it and forget it. It's passive investing, right?
My accountant said, don't even put it in there. Don't even look
Don't
back.
look at it. Don't pay attention.
You can't because the trap is that, you think that, well, the market's we'll have a bear market. Okay, fair enough. You can have a bear market, but you go back historically, it always goes up over 30 years. So listen, it's possible the United States could be destroyed, but we have bigger problems than your portfolio, right? So that's the essence of the book. And also, I go through a very, very damning history and historically about Wall Street, how it got so fucked up. Okay, I go through that in detail, and it's pretty wild when you read, like, why is it that, like, firms get away with murder? I mean, you guys know what's going on. I know like the bigger firms. Like, I mean, they're engaged in massive fraud, but they also serve a very useful purpose. So they have like this kind of the yin and yang.
What's the purpose?
The purpose is without the big firms, the economy would not run. You need to have brokerage firms and banks to provide credit, to give money to companies to go public, to do analysis of companies to see which ones deserve money, to keep orderly markets. In other words, you need capital markets, and you need a functional banking system to lend money, to raise money, to deploy money, right?
How much longer do you think we'll have that? Because I've been hearing rumors of potential bank crashes.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing: the bank. In the U.S., there won't be bank. They'll just buy them up. They'll bail them out. They'll always bail them out. There's no way. So even like when you hear all this stuff, like there was all this noise back maybe 6 months ago, and there's no way they're going to let even the big one in Silicon Valley Bank, where it was a lot of money, and they acted very irresponsibly, right? Although they just got bad luck and irresponsibility, right? But you knew the government was going to not let the depositors, because if that happened, I mean, shit, like, it would be so bad. Well, what happened is that everyone would take their money out of the small local banks, and all you would have is the big 4 or 5 banks out there, right? So I don't really think that's an issue. But what happens is that when you look at the success of the United States economically, it's based, I think, on 2 things. Number one, really well-ordered capital markets, and also that the dollar is the reserve currency. That's a much bigger threat, I think. Like the dollar right now is kind of losing its luster around the world. And if the dollar ever loses it completely, that would be a disaster for the U.S.
You think it's possible? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So with this crash course that you just gave me, because I'm into it, but I ain't really into it like that. I just learned a lot in first, you only been in here for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a waste of time to even go to college or to take class on and stuff,
So look, I think, listen, the college is there's two sides to it. If you want, I have two children, right? Okay, and a step as well, right? If you want to be professional, doctor, a lawyer, or something else, like my daughter's a psychologist, right? Where a license is required. And I think, of course, you should go to college and go down the path and do whatever courses you got to take to get licensed. And now you want to be an accountant, a lawyer, right? That's one thing, right? If you have no entrepreneurial side to you and you want to go and get an MBA or something, well, you can do that. But if you're someone else that is going to do either into the trades or you want to be an entrepreneur, music, like my son's a musician in music, right? I don't think there's any reason to go to college. I think college is a complete waste of time with ridiculously, pumped up tuitions that are just asinine, if you ask me. So I would never recommend someone to go to college unless they want to choose that path. For my daughter, it made sense. For my son, it didn't. But for investing, listen. For you, like I said in a few minutes, it's so easy to manage your money because you don't need a money manager and you don't need a financial planner except for your taxes, right? You just buy the most of your money. 80% should be in the S&P 500. You take 10%, you put into a bond fund. It's all in the book, right? Yeah. Bonds are like fixed income, so just to smooth out the returns over the years. And then the rest, and by the way, the rest you can speculate with. You can have fun. There's nothing wrong with taking 5 or 10% of your money and taking some flyers on whatever that means. Bitcoin, you want to trade a short-term stock, but the problem is if you don't set aside any money for risk capital, then you might start using a lot more than 5 or 10%. But if you do that, in 30 years, you'd just be shocked at how much money you ended up with simply from a 10% return. And some years it's going to lose 12%, but then last year it made 27%, right? It averages out. And basically it's like a set and forget, can't go wrong investment. And some level, you brought a good point up in the beginning, why trust me? On some level, it was like when I wrote the book, it was like my kind of making right what I felt like, because I have a really young audience. And I said, if every kid reads this book, the amount of money they're going to save themselves by not getting suckered in to these, to high margin where you borrow money against your positions, which kids do all the time. It's a freaking disaster, right? So I figured it was kind of my gift back to everybody. I think the book really was that, and I think I succeeded.
I like what you said there because even when we talk about politics and whether it's a politician like President Biden who's done things like the 86 mandatory minimum sentence and 88 crack laws, 94 crime bill, people are asking him now, since you're in the position of power you're in, right those wrong.
Yeah.
Right some of those
as he
wrongs.
should.
So that's what it feels like you're attempting to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I've been doing that for you met me when we met in the last time with the sales stuff, right? Yeah. And that book was hugely successful, And again, when I walk, I'll tell you what, it's the greatest thing to walk around the world, and it's all over the world, and people come up to you and say, you changed my life.
Yeah.
You made my life better. Or also, by the way, it's just that even if they haven't read anything I did, just the movie itself, the idea that a comeback. I really, is it okay to curse you?
Yeah.
I really fucked up.
Yeah.
I really fucked up. And I was one of those people who said, I'm fucking guilty. I never tried to minimize what I did.
That's right.
Right? I made, when you're in jail, everyone's like, I'm innocent. I'm like, no, I'm fucking guilty.
That shit.
Right?
Yeah.
Guilty, right? So, and of course I felt like shit about it, right? And people lost money. I paid back a ton of money, the whole thing, right? And, but, I'll tell you what, the people, a lot of young people, older people too, they see what happened to my life and how successful I am now. And they're like, it gives them hope. And it's part of also my message. It doesn't matter. We all make mistakes, and there's two things. You could either be defined by your mistakes, right? You can become your mistakes. I screwed up. I'm a bad person, so I guess I'm bad now. That's who I am. Or you can learn from your mistakes and get stronger and change, and like, because, you know, when you have pain like that, it's an impetus to change, right?
Yeah.
And as long as you're willing to put one foot in front of the other and do the hard work, and also I work really, really hard. I'm a hard worker, always have been, right? It doesn't matter where you are, how low you've fallen in life, you could always turn it around. It's up to you. You know what I'm saying? And also part of that is learning specific skill sets. So, for example, like with the sales book, right? That's like, sales is a skill that you need. No matter what you do, you're always trying to not even sell, just communicate your ideas, your hopes, your dreams, the value that you have. It doesn't matter what line of work you're in. You could be a mother trying to convince your kids to make their beds in the morning. You could be a teacher trying to convince your children the value of doing their homework, or just education in general. You could be a pastor trying to influence your congregation. You could be, God forbid, a politician trying to influence people to vote for you, right? But in any line of work, that communication is critical, mission critical. And I think what happens in any field, like in what you guys do, there's certain skill sets that you've honed over the years. You work really hard to get to where you are. If you're an engineer, there's certain skill sets required to that. If you start a business, you need to know certain entrepreneurial skills. A lot of times people, they have the vision, they know what they want to do, but they're not willing to learn the skills they need to succeed at it. So I'm a big believer in, like, it's not just hard work. It's actually, there's going to be that whatever you're trying to do in life, there's going to be a mission critical skill that you have to perfect. And whether it's the 10,000 hours or whatever, how many hours it takes, or being mentored by someone and not trying to jump ahead, which is, by the way, a mistake I made very young. I didn't use mentors correctly. I had the wrong one. And you pick up bad habits, right? But if you want to put the hard work in, it doesn't matter how low you fall, anybody can turn it around, I believe, and at least, not even rich, but do really well in life.
Yeah.
And this book, I guess, is sort of like the, and I hate writing, by the way. Do you write?
Yeah, I write.
I hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I have somebody who writes with me, but I write. Like, my third book comes out in May.
Yeah. So, and that's awesome. This is my fourth book, and I write alone, right? I don't have a ghostwriter at all. It don't help me. I hate it, but, like, I love having written, right? The best thing is when the book is done, right?
Absolutely.
It's a great feeling. So this is my fourth book, and I think this would be my, no, I don't know, I think it's maybe I got one more book of me, but it's a grind when you do it, though,
Definitely a grind.
But, so, yeah, I think the book is going to really help anyone who reads it. That's my...
And people don't realize you actually paid people back. You paid the people that you...
I did.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the problem I had is that it was really weird because I had this huge fine, right? But it didn't represent the people who lost money. It was just like the people who lost money was much less. And then, like, I don't want to get into this. It's a whole subject, but, like, because it annoys you. But, I got some report from the trustee or from the bankruptcy of the whole firm, and it said, like, they had extra money left over. They couldn't find any more people to pay back. And yet I still kept paying back for 20 more years. But that's Spielberg. I never resented it. I'm you know what? Here's the truth. I think there's two ways to live life. One is to get bitter and to have resentment and to want revenge. I'm just not like that. I never hold grudges about anybody or anything. And I look forward, not backwards. And, right now, I'm very fortunate. I'm fortunate. A lot of people don't get a second chance.
Right.
So when you do get a second chance like I did, and then, the movie was so awesome, right? You have to respect that and cherish that and also honor that and not fuck up again. So, like, I'm really, really careful.
So we're not getting the Wolf of Wall Street 2.
Yeah. So I met Leo and I, we ended up on the same boat somewhere about 2 years ago, and we were kidding around how great the movie was. And, like, he said something really great. He goes, I've never seen Marty so happy.
Martin Scorsese.
Scorsese on a movie set.
We don't know him by Martin.
I know Martin. Yeah, Martin Scorsese, right? Because I never seen Martin Scorsese so happy on a movie set. He goes, like, usually he's much more serious. He was laughing his ass off and just had and the movie reflects Marty's, like, the humor of it. Like, Marty was having a great time. He goes, and I'm like, yeah. And he goes, but there's going to be no sequel. Your life is way too boring. You're too good now. You're not doing drugs anymore. This is my right now. This is my Red Bull's my instead of cocaine.
Right.
Which is not as strong, by the way. But it's more sustainable.
Is it true that Donald Trump crashed the Wolf of Wall Street set?
I read this.
I read
that.
Yeah.
By the way. It's possible. Where did I read that? Was that
Kristen Milotti said it? Kristen Milotti.
Yeah.
Said it. She was a cast member.
Yeah. She played my first wife, by the way, whose real name was Denise.
He said
Right. So not.
Yeah.
Okay.
She said she crashed. He said Donald Trump crashed the set and acted a damn fool.
Well, there you go, right?
Well, did you hear Martin Scorsese compare Donald Trump to you?
No, what did he say?
Come on, stop, man.
Do you know?
He just said he sees
Can I tell you
similarities
something?
in you,
Do you know that I don't read anything about myself ever?
Really?
No
Yeah.
comments. No,
Yeah.
I never.
Because-
I don't have Google or nothing because I think that for me at least, right? I know in my heart that I do good shit. I know it. I know everything I do. I'm on, like, I'm giving more value than I'm getting in money. Or at least I'm trying, by the way, right? So, like, and there's haters out there in this world.
I was going to say a lot of
and
shit
now
could be
what?
made
You
up.
have tons of, I'm sure you have tons of haters. You must.
No, everybody loves me.
Oh, what?
Yeah, you got to have some, you know, and by the way, and the haters drive engagement, which is great, by the way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so like, I just let them, like, I don't, in the beginning, I used to look, I'd fight with them. What do you, you know, they're saying, oh, how could you listen to this guy after,
Yeah.
and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. Like, if Jesus Christ was today and he gave the sermon on the Temple Mount, people would say, what an idiot. Nothing new there. Like,
That's right.
No
Yeah.
matter who you are, they're going to hate on you. So I just don't read anything about myself because even my wife was like, yeah, this is a great arc. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I don't want, if someone tells me I'm so great, I don't want to know about it. I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know my good, my bad, and my ugly, and on the whole thing. And each day I try to be as good a person as I can.
Right.
And if you read comments, you can go freaking crazy. So
What?
what was this about
Crazy.
Donald Trump?
He said Martin Scorsese was in London at a film festival, and he said the panel's moderator Edgar Wright played a clip from Wolf of Wall Street, and he said some of your films, people are punished for their sins. In Wolf of Wall Street, they're celebrated. Wright said to Scorsese, who likened Belfort to Trump in his reply. He says, politically, the country they elected Trump, it's about kill, go get the money, do anything you want. You can't do anything to me. When he's saying I don't have to pay taxes to a certain extent because I have smart lawyers, he's right. It's true. It's legal. Doesn't mean it's right, but it's legal, Scorsese said to the former president's multiple indictments.
Yeah. I'd push back on that a little bit. I'll tell you why. Because I suffered the consequences for my actions. I lost everything. I did not leave jail with any money. I was broke. I started from scratch, and my comeback started with money I received from the Wolf of Wall Street book, and half of it went to pay back investors. So it was 50% went to investors. So it was really I had really tough years in the beginning. So I pushed back on that, and also, I think that I really try hard not to be a polarizing figure. I really do. And I don't know if that's good. In the beginning, there was a few years ago, I was a bit more polarizing, like, because there was things that would bother me about COVID, and I said, you know what? I said, stop. I don't want to stop my position. I'm here to help people, to give entrepreneurial advice, stock, and whatever. And I just don't want to. I just stopped. So, like, and admittedly, my engagement dropped a bit when you stop being as controversial. But I think you could love Trump or you could hate Trump. But I mean, it is shocking that it seems the more bad things they say about him, the more people embrace him. I can't quite figure that out.
Eventually, it's all got to catch up, though.
Yeah,
right?
but it's shocking. I've never seen. I thought, like, the first time, even before he got elected in 2016, like when that thing with the tape read, I think, oh, this guy's done.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's done. And then when he came out and he was like saying he just completely like nothing, I was like, what a stupid. And I was like, holy shit, it actually worked.
But eventually, it's going to all crash.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, like, when have we ever seen it not?
I know.
Like, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
You said you like Trump, though. You said he was a great president.
Listen, I think that Trump, the president, all I can say is the world when Trump was president, there was no wars. Now, some of that could be coincidental. Like, some of it's just luck, right? But there was peace. There was energy. We're energy independent. I thought, regulations were sort of less intrusive on business. And he was an asshole. Like, because he was like, he divided people, but so he had his personality was so abrasive, and I was like, what are you, like, just stick to the fucking policies which were working. Immigration was tight at the border, and I believe those, and I'm pro him. My parents, my great grandparents, and my grandparents were immigrants, right? So it's not that I'm anti-immigrant, of course I think, but legal immigrants, and there's a problem with that because the immigration system is screwed up. That needs to change also, but I think the country was in a much better spot, except for the fact that he pissed so many people off in the process. And part of being a great president is trying to unite and not divide. So, But I have to say, as a president, the country was in a better spot. I think the world was in a better spot. And I think I don't think Biden has mental decline. I think he's almost senile.
Yeah.
I wouldn't quite say senile, but although I would say that this whole thing about the Her report, right, is nonsense. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think Stewart had a great piece on this. So, like, the biggest thing that causes amnesia is being deposed. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone has got amnesia when they're getting deposed by someone, right?
Especially if you got something to hide.
Did you see the stuff in Georgia? Like that lawyer?
Yeah.
He couldn't remember anything. I don't remember. What happened yesterday? I don't know.
So your lawyer preps you to
right.
be that way.
So, like, I think it's a bit unfair. Like, I think it's more serious of the flubs he makes when he can't remember stuff and loses his track on.
Trump does that too, though.
Yeah, but not as bad, though. I think not as bad. It's not as bad.
I think it just depends what highlight reel you're watching.
But seriously, I don't think it's fair that the Her report. Because, like, he's under when I'm on the polls, like, I don't remember what I don't know, right? So it's unfair. But listen, the country will decide. But I think whatever happens in the election, and I'm not a fan of Biden. I'm not. I don't think you are either. I think
no, I'm not a fan of President.
I just sincerely hope if Trump gets elected, I hope he learns from the mistakes of, like, dividing and saying shit that is inflammatory. And if you can just check that, at first I was hoping.
I think he's kind of already went too far past that, though. Like, when you try to lead an attempted coup of this country, what you said was just a moment of foolishness.
So
which two things can be true.
Yeah.
It is a moment of foolishness to try to lead an attempted coup.
I think it was a riot. I look differently at it because, like, they weren't armed. Then you see a real coup. People come in with guns and it's organized like that.
They'll get it right the next time. This is just practice.
I think it was an ugly moment. Obviously, it was terrible and disgusting for the country, right?
And he said we should rip up the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election.
Yeah.
His lawyers said that he never agreed to support the Constitution. You really want somebody who don't believe in the Constitution to be the leader of the free world?
Listen, I'm going to tell you something that I say. I was the first person to say this. You go back to my social media because I have a big video on it, right? I'm going to repost this, but right after he lost, and everyone's saying it's fraud, they stole it. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. There's no fraud. Okay, there's fraud in every election, but that's just whatever. There's regular fraud, and there always is, right? But no more than usual, right? Trump lost the election because the Democrats played an amazing game of mail-in voting and ballot harvesting legally. Like, you can legally, the way they were doing it is they had all this early voting. And Trump saying, on the day of the election, don't do mail-in voting. So what happens is you have the Democrats have 30 whatever days before, 30, 40 days before, ballots are sitting on everyone's desk, on everyone's house, the coffee table. People are knocking on the doors. You fill out your ballot, get your ballot, you get it. And there's commercials running. So you have 30 days of voting on one side. And then the Republicans are basically showing up on Election Day. You're not going to win like that. And that's why Biden saying, how did he get 80 million votes? Because it's easy to do mail-in voting. So they took advantage of what was happening. It was legal. So I don't think the election was stolen anyway. I think they just were much smarter and more effective at harvesting ballots. And that's the new game.
And nobody talks about we don't talk enough about the series of unfortunate events that year was. You had COVID. You had George Floyd.
Yeah, it was.
It was a
that
lot
late year
going
was a
on
disaster.
There. I don't think President Biden wins the election if all of that's not going on.
Yeah. So again, and I think the worst thing of it all is that there's two people that, like, I don't think anyone really. I would like to see two different people running.
Absolutely.
Right? So, like, 80 and 78. It's not even the age. Listen, it's not age. My mother's 91, and she's sharp as a fucking tack, my mother. All right? Like, really sharp.
She shouldn't be president.
Yeah, right. She shouldn't be president, though, right? Listen, honestly, even, like, I'm 61 years old now, okay? I don't think I'm as sharp as when I was 45. Now, I have more wisdom and experience, and I think that's important. So I'm certainly have enough acuity to be president if I'm not running, trust me, right? But the point is, I think that when you get into your 70s and I don't know, I don't think you're not the person you are. I think there should be, certainly some at least mental acuity tests, and also the job ages you. So I think it's pretty sad that at this point we have an 80-year-old and 81 and 77 or 78, right? That's the best we can do.
I'm done with this fucking politics shit.
I know.
Okay? So, your ex-wife, right? Nadine. Or is it Denise? No. Nadine.
Nadine, yeah.
Is she still upset? It said that she's still upset. She's still upset and that you haven't given her an apology.
For what?
She feels like you owe her one. I was going to ask you, know that. Is it because, are you still upset that she posted something about, like posted details about you guys' relationship?
No. It's, I think, this is, you're into the personal stuff here.
A little bit.
No, listen, we have 2 children together, right? And we've always gotten along really well over the years, right? But she said some stuff that wasn't true.
Got it.
Okay? And not that it's not true, but she's playing the victim, okay? As if she was the innocent flower and I corrupted her. And it's just like, listen, I'm never going to minimize the mistakes. I was a drug addict. I was wild, okay? And I really never cheated on her that much. I was with hookers mostly. And I know that's, some people have different opinions on that, right?
That's
But not like real life relationships.
I know. But she had an affair with the she was banging the trainer, okay? So like, and by the way, I did 4 Quaaludes a day. She would do 1 a day. She was doing drugs with me as well. Yeah. And I said to her, your message would be more powerful if you didn't make yourself a victim in this whole thing. Yeah. You're part of it, and it takes 2 to tango. And that was my only thing, was the positioning herself as a victim. Yeah. Because she was a very sophisticated young girl, okay, who knew exactly what was going on the whole time. And
did you have an open relationship?
No.
They were
Just
cheating on each other.
Cheating. She cheated too. Yeah. And she did drugs too. And I did a lot more. And I had to go to rehab. She didn't. So I am not, listen,
So she had 1 Quaalude, 1 penis. You had multiple Quaaludes.
It doesn't matter.
Listen, I was so out of control in the drug department. But I think my point was, and we already made peace in this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But I said to, I think your message would be far more powerful if you take some ownership for your role in it, versus trying to say you're a victim. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think victimhood works for anybody. I think it's much better if you take responsibility for your own mistakes that you made, and I think it makes your message more powerful.
I agree with that. I think there's a difference between victimhood and when somebody actually did you dirty and there should be some atonement for it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't call anybody that you got over on when you was the wolf a victim. I mean, they were victims, but you wouldn't tell them that victimhood don't work for them. Because they're just telling the truth.
Yeah. But anything that I would ever apologize to my ex-wife about, I've apologized many, many times, long before, like while we were getting divorced. And over the years, we were very close for many years after. Very close, We always got along really well. And I just didn't like, it was like such this weird thing of saying things that were just blatantly untrue, like that, like online to try to get click. It was clickbait stuff,
Right.
And it really wasn't at a I never read it. Ever. I don't read anything online, but I have a new wife who reads it.
Yeah, I'm sure she brought it to you at dinner.
And that's, And that was really what it was about. And also we have children together. And I thought it was inappropriate, but she does what she wants, and she apologized to me for that as well. And
amazing.
I think that she stopped doing it, and we get along well now. So, and I wish her nothing but the best, by the way.
Right.
I love that.
She's the mother of my children. She was a great mom. She really was. She was a great mom. And I think she always says I was a great dad. I hope she says that, right?
No, she never said saying, no, I'm joking. Yeah.
No, I'll say she was
I'm joking.
I was a great mom, and we have 2 amazing kids together.
Yeah. Amazing. Woof. Love it.
I got a couple more questions just about the investing in Wall Street. You said earlier that America could be destroyed.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who feel like America is on the decline, right? Do you think the American economy is still a wise investment?
I would never bet against the American economy. I think the American economy is still a great investment. And by the way, when you're buying the S&P 500, right, that's what you're buying. You're buying the American economy. It's the 500 biggest companies, right, that drive the American economy. What I was referring to before, I think the danger, and I think it was a huge, if there's one major mistake the Biden administration made, was freezing Russia out of the monetary system. Okay, freezing Russian sovereign assets, cutting them off from SWIFT. It was a huge blunder because all it did was drove them into this other system. They're trying to do this BRICS system.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right. So it makes other countries. So wait a second. So we're using the dollar as our reserve currency, and you don't like us. You're going to freeze our sovereign assets and cut us off. So it's a reason for other countries to run away from the dollar.
So it's Brazil, Russia, India, China,
Correct.
South Africa. They're all looking to establish this new reserve currency
to compete with the dollar, right?
Yeah.
And by the fact that the dollar is a reserve, you don't know how. I mean, you do know, I'm sure. It's so important for the economy because it allows us. It's the only reason we can keep printing money and have this huge deficit is because everyone around the world sucks up these extra dollars. I go to my wife's Argentinian. When I go to Argentina, everyone it's all in dollars. Everything's being collected in dollars. Transactions are all in dollars, the big ones, right? So without that around the world, we wouldn't be living the standard of living that we have. So the dollar is just so important. And I think to drive Russia, do whatever you want, but to drive them out of the system, it just made them start buying yen. And now they were China, right? Didn't make any sense to me. And it didn't. And the Russians aren't suffering right now. Their economy, I think, is doing pretty well because they're selling oil still. I mean, like, it didn't matter. You know, I'm not pro-Russia. I have nothing. I've gone to Russia many times. The Russian people are the most amazing people. I love them. The Russian people. My biggest event was in Moscow, 32,000 people.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful city. I love Russian people. Hate that the war's happening. And I've been to Ukraine, Kiev 3 times. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Love the Ukrainian people, right? But to sanction them with freezing their assets and just making them, and eventually they'll get the money back when the war's over, right? But to do it, drove them out of the system. I think that's stupid.
Could the dollar collapse?
I don't think it collapses unless there's some sort of black swan event, like an EMP pulse that knocks everything out. I don't know. I don't think it happens like that. I think it's more a slow decline where you start to see that the dollar now maybe becomes 50% of the global currency of the world transactions versus 85, whatever it's 80s, in the 80s somewhere, maybe a little bit lower. And it used to be like 95. It is already starting to unwind, right?
Oof.
And but I don't think it happens. And I could be wrong, but I don't think it happens in the next 20 years. In other words, one day it's just done. I don't think it happens that way, but I could be wrong.
Wall Street, right? How can someone extract the benefits of Wall Street without being drawn into the dark side of it?
Yes, that's a great question. So the dark side is putting on CNBC, right? And listening to the pundits and thinking that you can speculate and short-term trade, like buying a stock today at $30 and sell it at $32. Number one, human beings by nature are the worst stock pickers in the world. And listening to a stockbroker is like idiotic. And I'll tell you why. It's the Wall Street investing is the one exception to the rule that we all have grown up with, that if you want to get the best result, seek out an expert to help you get the best result. So for example, if the pipes in your house crack and you have a leak, I suggest you call a plumber, a licensed plumber, to fix your pipes. Don't try to fix them yourself. You're going to get a much better result. It's worth the $300 to get your pipes fixed. If your electricity shorts out, all right, call an electrician. Don't go yourself and try to fix it. You'll get electrocuted, right? Much better result, worth the $500, right? If you're sick, you need surgery, don't try to cut me open here. Go to the doctor, a licensed professional, the expert, to get you surgery and get you healthy, right? That works in all professions except investing. It's the one exception where the people that manage money and give you advice don't get you a better result, they get you a worse result than if you did it yourself by simply buying the S&P 500. They're all trying to beat the S&P 500, and they never do. Now, again, there's a few of them that do. They're not taking your money. They're trading for multi-billionaires, and it's a closed market. And then you have the rest of these so-called hedge fund managers. Those are the rock stars that can beat the market, right? And the rest of the people bask in the afterglow, and their returns suck. When they take their 20% performance bonus, their 2% matching, you're not going to beat the S&P 500. You'll do much worse. So it's so simple for an investor to get the value of Wall Street, right? So Wall Street takes all these companies public, and if they do well, they end up in the S&P 500. So if you own the S&P 500, you get to extract all the benefits, and you don't play into all the nonsense, the noise about short-term trading, the latest sector. It's just all the fancy leverage products. It's just a waste of time. And this is not me. I didn't come up with this. Warren Buffett says the same exact thing. He gives the same. All the people really are sincere. And he's sincere. And even a sincere money manager, your friend, he'll say, just buy the fucking S&P 500 and hold it. And if you want to smooth that, you could buy a little bonds in there as well. I hate bonds, but still, the formula says you should buy some bonds as well. I talk about that in the book. But really, the S&P, it's like It's so simple. So that's how you extract the value out of Wall Street. You buy the S&P, open up an account at Vanguard or BlackRock. They all have these accounts. There's no expenses. You could buy it in one trade, and then every month put a little bit of money in. And don't worry if it's up or down. If it's down, great. If it's up, great. That doesn't matter. Because over the long term, it's going to compound at like 10.2% is the average, and it's like over 100 years, right? It's going to keep doing the same thing, and no guarantees, but it's pretty much like that's what it's going to do. And if you keep making small investments and reinvest your dividends, it grows so dramatically. In the beginning, it's slow, but after 10, 15, and 20 years, it starts to skyrocket. Yeah. So you could end up with literally millions and millions of dollars, even if you don't have millions of dollars to invest. That's how you extract value from Wall Street. And don't play into the bullshit. If you receive newsletters or stock tips, just not wipe that shit out, except if you want to speculate and have some fun. But that money is like casino money. That's the secret. It's really simple. And in the book is really explains how to do it, a little bit more about the taxes and stuff. And it's a great read.
Did you bring one?
I got
exactly.
He's got some. Yeah. He's got to be one around here. Where's the wolf of investing?
I got it in here somewhere.
No, he's keeping that one at home for himself. I don't see it.
I have one at home. I'll find it. I have a couple in here, actually.
I can't carry because of my arm right now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. You got a whole nother arm.
I was out there saying I have a book today,
It's Jordan Belfort.
But I love The Breakfast Club. I'm a fan. I listen to The Breakfast Club, and your career is awesome. But I love, what I love the most? How freaking honest you are about politics. That you're not like just a shill.
Nah.
And I really respect that. I more than you could imagine, I respect that. Because there's nothing more than I hate when I watch TV and there's people just shilling for the Democratic Party. You're like dead balls honest. And that's great. And I really respect that. I think it's important. You have a young audience and young people need to hear that,
Thank you, Jordan. The Wolf of Investing is out right now. It's Jordan Belfort. Thank you for coming, brother.
My pleasure. Thanks.
It's The Breakfast Club.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.